Hey everybody, and welcome back to Games That Suck. I appreciate you being here. Our mission on this channel is to explore and complete games that rank the bottom of the list on Metacritic, using the critic score as our metric. I originally wanted to do this list in an order so that the last game we played was the absolute worst of the worst, but I was worried that the ROMs may not work, since of course they're not in high demand. But after some feedback from you guys, I decided to revert back to the original plan. We're starting this list over, starting at game 50 and working our way down. Since some of these games may not work, I will be substituting them with another similarly ranked game. I'm also choosing to exclude sports titles, since they're essentially the same game throughout the years. Join me in this journey to see if these games are truly bad, or if they're just misunderstood. We're going to start with the bottom 50 PlayStation 2 games, then move on to another console. I originally was going to start this list off with State of Emergency 2, but, of course, it had its fair share of bugs that made it unplayable. So I went one game up on the list and landed on The Mummy Returns. This is the first of two Mummy games on this list, so let's get wrapped up in this Crypt King saga and see what it's all about. The Mummy Returns scored a 44 on Metacritic and received 0 positive critic reviews, but seemed to have won the hearts of a few users, gaining the favor of at least 2 people reporting a positive experience. Okay. The main menu has a pretty basic setup, with only a few options to choose from. It has the standards, new game, load game, and option selections, but also has a features tab, which is just a promotional trailer for the movie The Mummy Returns, but what else would you expect? Within the new game menu, we're presented with a choice. Who are we going to play as? There are 2 options, Imhotep and Rick O'Connell. From what I understand, they follow a similar campaign with slightly different activities in each zone in the world. The game defaults to Imhotep when initially entering this section of the menu, so I decided to just play this half of the story.
6,000 years ago, a fierce warrior known as the Scorpion King led a great army on a campaign to unite the known world. Though they fought well, the Scorpion King and his army were defeated by the Sumerians and driven deep into Shir, the sacred desert. On death's door, the Scorpion King made a pact with the desert god Anubis. If Anubis would let him live to conquer his enemies, he would surrender to Anubis his immortal soul. The next year, the Scorpion King stormed northward with the army of Anubis. No power on earth could stop the supernatural warriors, and the Sumerians were crushed before them. But the Scorpion King's moment of victory was also his last. As the army of Anubis was returned once again to oblivion, the soul of the Scorpion King was banished to the underworld. Ages have passed from that year to this, the year of the Scorpion. In this one year of the millennia, the army of Anubis can return to ravage the earth like a lethal plague, if the evil sorcerer Imhotep has his way. Having uncovered the corpse of the mummy in the desert sands, a dark order now works to revive the only being mighty enough to overthrow the Scorpion King, claim the army of Anubis, and go on to rule the world in darkness. May the gods help us. The Mummy Returns.
Starting the game as Imhotep puts us in the basement of a museum, where we're being revived by 2 people who are referred to at this point as our servants.
Thank you, my servants. Your master has awoken.
You carry a heavy
They explain the gods are not happy that we're alive, but we can bring them gifts to appease them.
Are not pleased. They have many powers that can stand in our way and keep us from our quest.
We need to scour the rest of the museum in search of 4 offering stones. Before we're put in control, we're also granted our bread and butter ability, Soul Drain. This allows us to drain the life force from enemies who are in a stunned state, healing us in the process. We're also told about canopic jars. These jars are found around the level and future levels and will increase our strength, which is in this case, our health. With all that background, we're finally ready to start collecting some offerings. As we begin searching around the level, we run into a couple types of enemies, museum guards and ninja-looking dudes called Medjai. The combat is pretty mediocre in this game. X throws basic punches, circle throws kicks, and square is your block ability, but we'll rarely use it in this game. I found that the basic attacks tended to work the best since you could hit them a few times, get them in a stunned state, and just suck their soul, which is just an instant kill. The enemies are very dumb in this game until you get to the end levels, but still, even then, they're pretty dumb. So we traverse the museum level in search of these stones, and along the way come across a new spell, Resurrect, which we'll need to obtain one of the offerings by reviving a skeleton dog and killing it, since the stone resides inside it. The other 3 stones are laid around the rest of the level, and it's not very big, so they're pretty easy to find. Once you've found them all, you need to make your way back to the basement. Now, we need to access the inventory by pressing triangle. This stores all the things we've collected in each level. Select each stone from your inventory and put it in the appropriate bowl. Once complete, we get ambushed by a squad of Magi and their leader, Ardith Bey, who seems to be the main antagonist to you in Imhotep's section of the campaign.
You should have perished at the hands of my Magi forefathers thousands of years ago. For the Pharaoh!
You're prompted to resurrect your ancestors with your new ability, and that's the end of the level. You get a cutscene and move on.
We have the bracelet. Come, Lord, the quest is upon us.
The next level's set in Cairo. This is an easy level if you're into running around aimlessly and puzzles. This game doesn't really tell you all that much, let alone give you a map to make your way around, so you're stuck roaming around until you make your way to the right place. Basically, if you just run around killing all the enemies, you'll find your way to the correct location. You need to head to a specific hotel, and you'll know when you get there. It's a bit more lavish than the rest of the level. Once here, you need to kill all the Magi in the area until a door is unlocked upstairs for you to enter. You burst your way through, and there's 3 more to defeat.
Who is it?
After doing so, you're awarded another canopic jar and the spell Curse of Death. Now we make our way back to the docks we started on. I ran in circles for a while trying to figure out the correct way back. There's a lot of dead ends and a lot of long hallways in this level to confuse you. Once there, we make our way over to the train station and we're confronted once again by Ardith and his Magi. Fight them off for some time, and then we're on to the next level. We're taking the train to Karnak, which is a desert level. This level is super straightforward and just plain easy. The enemies, however, tend to run away from you, but you need to kill them to obtain a spirit sword. So then you can attack the following enemies, the shadows. Once you make it to the open area, collect another canopic jar, spell, and slay all the shadows to earn the Amulet of Isis. After that, there's another room with just 1 shadow in it. Slay that, and an item appears in the back of the room.
Utefond Geb, Heke Bayara, Heke Peru Keru, Anuk Sunamun, Anuk Sunamun, rise up, rise up, rise up.
After performing a ritual, your female companion is now possessed by Anuk Sunamun. Okay, at this point, we're well on our way to finding the Golden Pyramid. We need to slog our way through a jungle next. This level's probably the worst one in the whole game. You need to jump, using square, over many pits of death. If you die at any point in the level, you start the entire thing over again, which is really why this level was trash. The jump mechanics in this game remind me of Tomb Raider on the PS1. You jump in the direction you're facing, and there's no camera control in this game, so you're at the mercy of whatever direction the game wants to show you. I missed a few jumps in this level near the end and had to start the whole thing over again, but luckily you can run past most of it. Once you make your way through all the obstacles and jump puzzles, we run into Ardith one last time before going into the Golden Pyramid. Same thing as last time. You defeat his Medjai, hit him a little while, and then that's it.
This is not the end, creature. The Pharaoh shall be avenged.
The Golden Pyramid has the entrance to the Netherworld, which is where we're trying to get to.
The inscriptions are clear, my lord. According to these signs, you must be purified before you can pass through this portal. 4 canopic jars contain the elements of the purification ritual, but they are closely held by the guardians of the Netherworld.
To access it, we need to go around the area exploring and killing enemies until they drop a canopic jar. We'll need 4 in total. 2 from the right side hallways and 2 from the left side. Once you've collected all 4, we'll make our way back to the main room and enter the now opened door. Once we're in the Netherworld, we're stripped of all our powers and all our health by the Scorpion King. But we're not quite ready to face him yet.
Pitiful. The Scorpion King would not face me as an immortal.
We're stopped by the main protagonist,
right now,
Rick O'Connell.
Let me clarify one thing. I really, really, really hate mummies!
We need to face him in battle now. The only way to land a hit onto Rick is to block and wait for an attack, so you can parry it and land a hit. Each time you do damage Rick, the king roars and shakes loose some of the floor and opens up various pits of doom. 4 or 5 roars later and you've defeated Rick. He falls into the pit and dies. Now, we're at the climax of the game, the Scorpion King. Since this game is so terrible at giving you any kind of hints and guidance, this boss is kind of a pain in the ass to figure out. His first phase is an easy nut to crack. There's a few small pillars that seem out of place that you have to make him run into, then they fall on him and you go back and attack his glowing tail. There's 4 pillars, and once you've had him hit them all, phase 2 begins. He climbs out of reach and shakes the place, sending spikes down from the roof. Just don't stop running and they won't hit you. It's easy as that. Thankfully, health potions also fall during this event because you're going to need them. Now, the king comes back, and this is where the game stops making sense. You need to figure out, on your own, that he will climb the pillars if you lead them to him. You need to position yourself in front of him when he climbs back down, hold the block button, and coax him into doing a specific attack by standing still, and then moving out of the way at the right time. Figuring this out took a lot of time and a lot of frustration, but is easy to replicate once you've gotten it. After hitting him 3 times, his leg flies off and phase 3 begins, starting once again with a wave of falling spikes and health packs. Now, this phase is absolute pain to solve. It's very similar to phase 2, but he has a new attack, a grab. You need to time this grab so fucking perfectly, or else it will not register and you will not have an opportunity to hit his tail. On top of this, you have limited time to hit his tail, and the hits might not register. Fortunately, if he grabs you, it doesn't deal a ton of damage. Okay, there's one more round of raining spikes, and then a cutscene happens. Your possessed companion, Anuk Sunami, tosses a spear called the Scepter of Osiris for you to use.
Out of the way! I have the Scepter of Osiris. So ends the reign of the Scorpion King. No!
The last thing you need to do is get him into a down state, similar to phase 2 and 3, but then go grab the scepter and throw it at him, instead of hitting him with your sword. After that, game over. You've beat the Mummy Returns.
The Scorpion King himself. warrior prince of the nether world, has fallen at the hands of the evil sorcerer Imhotep, the mightiest of mummies. Now virtually immortal, he sets himself forth as Neo-Pharaoh, ruler of the entire globe, commanding the army of Anubis, Anaxunamun at his side. He marches forward across the desert sands, laying waste to everything in front of him, enslaving all life that he finds, and crushing all who will not bow before him. Truly, evil has won the battle, and evil has won the war. Not even my order of Magi protectors can unseat him now. Imhotep rules the world in eternal darkness.
Okay, so changing the rules of this journey led me to believe that starting with the game's 50 back from the worst of all time would potentially give me a good experience to begin with and gradually get worse. This was not the case with The Mummy Returns. This game was the absolute worst game I feel I've played to date. This was such a pile of garbage. It took me maybe 2.5 hours to beat, and had the most lazy controls and absolutely terrible graphics. Not to mention the mindless enemy AI. The spells we received throughout the game seemed to serve no purpose. I maybe used them once, but since they cost health to use, I didn't feel like it was a worthwhile trade. Needless to say, The Mummy Returns sucks. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of These Games Suck. I hope you guys enjoyed the content, because I sure as hell didn't enjoy playing it. This week was The Mummy Returns, and next week's going to be Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter. Now that's a mouthful. See you guys next week.